The Unfiltered by Jade.
Jade. Welcome to the Unfiltered by Jade, where we get out of the box and dive into topics that are sidelined. I look forward to entertain, educate, and inspire. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, donate, and make everybody know about this.
Beats by RB Records, a proud sponsor of The Unfiltered by Jade.
Shopping Assistance Jamaica takes the stress away. Our services include online and local shopping in Jamaica for individuals and businesses, personal shopping, purchasing of company and office supplies, importing and exporting small packages across Jamaica and worldwide, helping you to find unique gifts and items for all events and occasions. Contact us at 876 919 5195. Shopping Assistance 2015 at gmail.com. Follow Shopping Assistance on Instagram at Shopping Assist JA, at Twitter at Shopping Assist 5, and Facebook at The Shopping Assistance. Shopping Assistance, your style, your budget. Welcome to the Unfiltered by Jade. Today we have with us one of my friends. His name is Ade. Hi, Ade.
Hi Jade.
How are you?
I um I am well. I'm giving thanks. Good to be here.
Nice. Can you tell them about yourself, please?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm Ade Brown. I have been married for almost 3 years. 3 years
What? What?
August coming.
Yeah.
Um I am a counselor by training and profession. I work as a youth director full time and counsel part time. And I have ADHD, so not only have I studied the topic, but I have it, and I've had to get help for it, and still get help for it. That's a bit about me. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So, as you heard him say, we're going to be talking about ADHD today. So, Ade, let's get into it. What is ADHD?
All right. So ADHD. Let's just start with the acronym. So it's
Mm-hmm.
Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Now,
Right.
some people, might say, what, is there a difference between ADHD and ADD?
Right.
It's the same thing. There was a point in time where it was called attention deficit disorder. So when I was first diagnosed with it, that's the name. And then as they did more research and stuff like that, they came up with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. What it is what I call a neurodevelopmental disorder,
Right.
meaning that it has to do with the brain. So when you think ADHD, you think brain.
Right.
And neurodevelopment has to do with brain functions that help us to organize our lives, to make decisions, to plan ahead, those kind of things. So things we that grow over time. So a child's neurodevelopment is going to be different than say a teenager's, young adult, etc. And so
Yes.
what happens with ADHD is that there are some issues where that is concerned, and it creates problems of inattention,
Mm-hmm.
easily highly distractible, making careless mistakes. It also deals with hyperactivity, you know,
Okay.
and persons who are hyperactive are they describe as individuals who can't stay still. They're always on the move, and
Right.
then there's impulsivity, the whole thing of acting without considering consequences beforehand. And we have a joke in ADHD circles, ready, fire, aim. So it's you're not really planning. You're not thinking what's going to happen before I act. You just act
You
on its
just
own,
act. Okay.
right? And that, of course, no. The thing is, all of us struggle with inattention and probably feel more energetic at times and can be impulsive, right? But the difference with ADHD for those who have it is that it is more severe, you know, um, and persons tend to have some impairment, whether it's, in couple of settings. So like
Mm.
relationships, school, work, um, and usually the individual, not usually, I would say individuals who have it are diagnosed, um, or either diagnosed at like say age 6, 7, or they have been having these challenges prior to their adult diagnosis, um,
Mm.
where it is very obvious that school life has been impacted over the years, relationships, and then when they go into adulthood, work, home, things at home, like keeping up with chores, listening to instructions, those
Mm.
kind of stuff. So it is about the severity of the
Right.
symptom, and it doesn't just affect the individual; it affects those connected to the individual. you
Yes.
know. So that,
Yes.
in a nutshell, is ADHD, and I mean there's some other elements, but
Right.
those
We'll
will
get
come up
into.
as we discuss, right?
Yes. Yes. What are some of the types of ADHD?
Right. So you have three types, three well common types.
Right.
These types are laid out in the DSM-5. That's
Right.
a diagnostic statistical manual for psychiatric disorders. So you have the predominantly inattentive type.
Right.
That's the one that I was diagnosed with when I was a child. And so those are the predominantly inattentive, um, you know, a lot of daydreaming, lose focus easily, miss instructions, making careless mistakes. And it's not a
Right.
situation where an individual can't do something, but because they haven't checked over their work, they haven't, paid attention to certain elements, um, some mistakes are made that, can be costly.
Right.
So that's the inattentive type. Then you have the predominantly hyperactive slash impulsive type. And so those are not the individuals who can't stay still, like for children in class. They're
Right.
always on the move. They can't sit down, and of course, they tend to be very disruptive as a result.
Yes.
Tend to go to class a lot, and and it happens at home as well, and in other settings, church, etc. And then when you become an adult, usually the hyperactivity then becomes um, restlessness. So
Mm.
the person may not be running out of class or climbing the walls, but they might be fidgeting a lot. Their legs are always, jittering, they're always fidgeting their hands. They may be very busy, that they
Yes.
can't not be busy. They have to be
And
busy
and
because
and
of
I
that restlessness. Mhm.
right. And Ade, not to cut you, but
Sure.
sometimes sometimes we have a saying where we say busybody. So
Right.
sometimes we see kids are so busy and up and down, and we just give them a title called busybody instead of trying to figure out what is happening. Why is it that they have to always be moving?
Exactly, exactly. So
Yes.
it's important to find out why, because there, just to some extent, you do expect children to be up and about and energetic,
Yes.
for the most part. And as they're at a time of discovery and exploration about, their world, and
Right.
trying to understand things. And that's important. Where it becomes problematic is when it begins to create problems with their school performance, their family relationships, with friendships,
Right.
and so if it is creating pain for them and for others, then no, it's not good to check out why, because it could be ADHD, it could be something else, you
Yes.
know. Um, and so those are the predominantly hyperactive type will struggle in that way. And I did have a classmate like that, very hyperactive, was also diagnosed with ADHD, and in prep school, and he would just be in and out of class. He was often sent out of class because he was disruptive. But the truth is that he was struggling. It was not like he
Right.
was a bad person or trying
Right.
to
Or
be.
doing it on purpose.
Exactly, but he
Right.
did have always making jokes in class, always, that kind of thing. So, and then you have the combined types, so those who have both inattentive and the hyperactive, impulsive dimensions of ADHD. So those are the
Wow.
types, and then even with those types, you can have no differences in intensity or severity. So you have
Yes.
those with mild, those with moderate, and those it's severe. And those are all that also, is a part of being able to identify the type. And of course, you have childhood ADHD versus adult ADHD. No,
Right.
all ADHD starts in childhood, whether it was diagnosed or not.
Or not.
And
All
you
of
said
it
right,
starts in childhood.
it's all there, and adults can only get a diagnosis when there's thorough investigation into the history with others to make those connections to say definitely there's a pattern, that they've had this
Mm-mm.
before, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. What are some of the effects of ADHD on one's life? You have it, so let us know. Give us something personal. It doesn't have to be too deep, but at least, yeah. And let me say, whether it is relationships, jobs, education, self-esteem, whichever one. You can give us whichever.
So, all right. So personal. So when we talk about the effects, sharing personally, I'm supposed to be on vacation leave
Right.
right now, and I had these plans about what I'm going to do in this time. Given it's a pandemic, but I'm still gonna, do certain things to relax
Yes.
and rest and etc. So I had these plans, um, and then different things have been going wrong, and I mean that's a given. Things do go wrong, um, but one of the impacts where I could see my ADHD coming out is in the area of what they call emotion regulation or regulation of emotion, right?
Okay.
And basically, those with ADHD have a challenge managing emotion. And so,
Mm.
for example, if there is anxiety, I will get flooded. So that happened, for example. Things are not going well, I start to get anxious, I'm flooded with anxiety, right?
Yes.
And and the anxiety is not being anxious for no reason. This is something that anybody could be genuinely anxious about. But I'm so flooded with it that I'm unable to kind of work through how am I going to deal with it. So sometimes I kind of go into this emotional flooding, shutdown kind of thing, and then or feel flooded with sadness, flooded, or I get very angry and flooded with anger, and so I don't naturally regulate emotions, and so I have to use methods to kind of help me regulate. One of those is I take medication, which
Yes.
helps with all my symptoms, and I'm better able to regulate. But I may need to pause and breathe, or take
Mm.
a walk outside, and
Yes.
so I'm flooded. So it takes me a little while sometimes to work through or process things because of how intense the emotions are, and I may experience uncomfortable things in such an intense way that it's very difficult to kind of organize how to problem solve. So that's just one side of it, you know,
Right.
how it affects. The other side is in the area of following through plans. So I've made these plans, but then, for example, I'm feeling all this emotion. I get into my TV watching spree, whether it's Netflix or I'm watching, Japanese anime, and I'm doing it for hours, and
Yes.
it's easy. The brain is easily stimulated there, because I'm looking for stimulation. That's a part of the ADHD. Looking for what will produce this more, feeling of this dopamine release,
Yes.
and so I am focused for hours, losing sleep, just watching this stuff, you know, and in the back end I said, no, I kind of need to stop, but then I'm not stopping,
Yes.
I'm just locked into it. And whereas we all can struggle with that in this pandemic, there comes a point where you have to stop and just switch. And for me to stop and switch is difficult, so
You
I
know,
lose
I'm
the
gonna
time.
let me inject something here. I'm laughing because not too long ago
Yeah,
I'm there doing. I find that doing crossword puzzles really calm me and it helps me and relaxes my brain and
yeah,
so I've been doing it regularly. So I said to my husband a while ago, man, I feel like I want to sleep, but I can't because I'm up doing these puzzles and I can't find myself stopping.
wow,
And I
exactly.
think because my interest is there and
Yes.
I am so invested in it, it's like I'm finding it hard to stop. When you start these things, you find it hard to stop. So I get you.
Right. right, and that can create problems for me because other things are not getting done. I might,
Yes.
are other aspects which I need to rest, and part of that rest is being able to sleep. Part of that
Yes.
rest is being able to, connect with friends. Connect with you to this, podcast. So, so I like this morning I had to say, all right, I'm gonna take this app off my phone now, take a break from the anime watching, and I had to. I have the app on my TV, but it's harder to manipulate the app on the TV. So
Than your phone.
I had to set up some hurdles to make it more difficult for me to watch. You know,
Ah.
and therefore I could switch and say, all right, I have counseling. Like get my counseling session today. I got got my counseling. And I say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I have Jade at 1 o'clock, so I need to kind of give myself at least an hour to settle down,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just put things in place and structure.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so it's with planning, with emotion regulation. Um, those are some key ways it has impacted my work, and so
How so?
that's it. All right. So for example, um, it might take me longer to plan, you know, things. Especially for my work as a youth director, you have to plan. You're planning for young people meeting online, or you're planning an outing, or you're planning for a team. Being able to structure things for a team of people.
Right.
And so, but one of the big issues, for example, has been if I'm not planning ahead of time and I wait for last minute, which is one of the key issues with individuals of ADHD, the kind of last minute urgent thing, then people don't have enough time to be able to commit to something. And so sometimes I go without the help I need because I don't give people
Mm.
enough time to actually say, yes, they can do it, no, they can, and prepare. And that has happened a couple of times. Other times I lose hours of the day because I'm stuck, distracted by something, absorbed in something, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'm absorbed in something which can be good. So I could be reading, which reading is good to help me in my work. But at some point, I need to do some stuff, and I may not get those stuff done in a timely way, you know.
Right.
So it has impacted um, my work, and relationship. Um, easily there's this thing about low frustration tolerance with those have
Mm.
ADHD, and so something comes up in relationship with my wife, and so I get very flustered sometimes very easily,
Yes.
and I mean mind is getting better, and I've been having this for a long time, but sometimes I just get so frustrated that I'm shut down emotionally, or I'm angry, I'm not and I'm not really processing in a way that would help us work through whatever conflict or issue we have.
I like how you
Yeah.
said that though, in terms of sometimes we shut down emotionally, because sometimes I guess it happens and we probably don't know when it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Or we think we're just taking some time for ourselves, but yet still emotionally we're just not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess it's going to somewhere comfortable for us to deal with it, and we have to deal with it in a particular way, or you have to deal with it in a particular way.
Right.
So, as you said from the beginning, also, it doesn't only affect persons dealing with it, it affects persons around them.
Yes.
So, spouses have to understand that this is what my partner have, and this is how. So, for them also, it's good to even say for them to ask questions or do research so that they can help.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right, they can help, and when something is happening, they don't take it personal, because hey, this is a situation, let me see how I can maneuver this, let me see how it is that I can best help in this situation, instead of saying, let me take it personal and it's being done towards me, or you're forgetting to do this because you don't want to do it for me, or you're being emotionally shut off because you don't want to be with me, or you know
Yes. Yes.
yeah, so it's
Exactly.
it right, so it's good if our partners have that understanding, so that they can be more mindful of it. And even for workplace,
Mm-hmm.
for workplace, it's good if, like, employers can know about it.
Right.
Because if they know, they won't say, hey, you're taking too long about this, you're being lazy, you just don't want to do the job or whatever. If they know, they can more help, and they can more find ways to garner to help one of their workers to be more, to get stuff done better.
Yes. Yes. And I just want to comment quickly on those two things that you just said about marriage and about work, right? So
Hmm.
slightly different. So with marriage, um, one professional who himself has ADHD, Dr. Ned Hollowell. He says, one of the key ways to help adults with ADHD cope is help them to find the right partner and the right work. You know,
Yes.
right? One that fits their ADHD situation. Because now if you're married already, of course I believe in having you know a long lasting marriage. To the
Yes.
deep part. That's my so we have to work with what we have.
Yes.
Now it's important that once a spouse knows that their spouse has ADHD, it's going to be a lifetime of learning. Learn
Mm-hmm.
about ADHD, not in a hopeless way. So you learn about the disorder, and you're you know healthy information, helpful information,
Right.
reading, seminars, couples counseling with a counselor who, understands or is willing to understand ADHD properly. So you're learning, yeah. It has to be ongoing learning to be able to cope, as you said. Now, with work, it's a little trickier with work. So there are some in the camp that say you don't tell your employer that you have ADHD, and that
Ah.
and that has a place because the truth is sometimes a lot of persons don't understand, and so
Mm.
they may use your ADHD against you in the
Against
workplace.
you.
As like you can't do the
Ah.
work, you're not intelligent enough to
You're
handle
not
it, you know,
suitable.
and
Mm.
that may not be the case. What may be the case is that you that the truth is that you have some strengths and you have some weaknesses that come with the
Mm.
package of ADHD, and so not many employers understand
Yes.
ADHD unless, of course, they themselves have it and are getting help, and that's a different story. And if you're a boss and you have people working under you communicate ADHD and you have employees with it, then that's a different situation. You know,
Yes.
but if you're working for somebody, one suggestion that has been given by Dr. Holloway, for example, is you don't say I have ADHD. You say, here are some things that I am good at. I'm strong at these things. And here are some things that I am weak at.
Right.
And then you communicate the weaknesses, not like I can't do them or I'm not willing to do them, but you say, you know, you can then use that now to ask for accommodation. So he said, so for example, you know, hey, I work best when I have a seat that's not by the window, you know? So when
Ah.
I'm by
Okay.
the
Okay.
window, I
Okay.
don't
Okay.
focus as much.
Okay. I
And
get you.
so can I get a cubicle that's more in the center of the workspace, you know? Or I find that I get tasks done best in the morning versus in the afternoon. Is it possible to have our meetings in the afternoon? You know, so you can communicate the challenge of ADHD without necessarily saying that you have
But but
ADHD.
but honestly though, Adi, honestly,
Mhm.
how many of the bosses are gonna say, okay, you prefer to work in a middle cubicle than at the end? Let me fix that. How many of our bosses are actually gonna
Right,
say, okay, let me give it to you? How many more bosses though are actually gonna say when we go to them and say, I work better in the mornings. Can we have our meetings in the mornings? Many of them are not gonna accommodate that. Because
right.
they're just thinking that you just want a preference of having meetings in the morning rather than at lunchtime.
You make
How is it that we go about doing that then? Because if
right,
it is that if it is that letting them know, okay, this is the issue. We don't know how to cope with it properly in these situations. If it is that they're gonna use the ADHD against us, if they know,
yes, yes,
how is it then that say this to them? Because just going to them and asking them, hey, can we have meetings in the morning instead of the evenings, when majority of the other people don't have a problem with having it in the evenings and you're the only
right,
one that wants it in the morning? How does that
right,
work?
right. And that's an excellent point, Jade. The reality is that we're, an individual as ADHD like myself is not going to always get the accommodation they request, which is why it is a request. So there are two types of accommodations. There are formal, and then you have the informal.
Informal.
The formal ones are the ones that you can request and negotiate for, and then or the ones that you try to negotiate for. It doesn't always work, as I've said. But then you have the informal the accommodations. These are no more personal. The things that, given my situation, what can I do? What can I put in place to help me in a particular situation? So for example, I may be in a work situation where meetings happen in the morning once a week, right? In a situation like that, I know that maybe on that day I may not get as much done as on a day when I don't have a meeting in the morning. So I may plan to put certain activities on certain days so that I can get more done, and then know that if I don't get as much done on the meeting days, I've at least put in some key things. I've met some key targets, for example, or some persons, um, they have to take breaks. So they might be,
Right.
so instead of working 3 hours nonstop, which doesn't usually work with individuals at age, unless you really love what you're doing, then you might, like, so that I do it. I set a timer for maybe like 20 minutes. And timer goes off, I take a 10-minute break. I might, get up, walk around the building.
Can I tell you that you taught me how
Or,
to do that?
yeah, we've spoken about
Listen,
that. So,
I
so
have
look at this
learned
very
so much from you. I have learned so much from you. I've been doing that because you taught me how to do that.
exactly. So we take these breaks. So those are, and then the truth is that Um, one of the greatest accommodation, when possible, is to choose a job that works with and not against the ADHD. You know, um,
Yes.
so if at all possible, so if it's not possible, and this is why we don't just handle ADHD on our own. It's always about getting the professional support and the relational support and the resources needed to manage ADHD. But given that all those things are in place and are happening, one accommodation may mean to change your job situation. So you don't. So this is not an invitation for those listening to this podcast now to say, "Oh, I have ADHD," and so. Well, first of all, we're not inviting people to diagnose themselves. This is
Yes.
You have to be properly, and note the word proper, because not all diagnosis is proper. Proper professional, that somebody who knows what they're doing, somebody with
So
enough
don't do it
experience.
online either.
Right? No, what you can do is these small little checks to see if you may need to be diagnosed. But then you have to work with people, clinical psychologists or psychiatrists who's well versed, who has had enough experience, who can do a comprehensive assessment. That's the first thing. No self-diagnosis. But the second thing is that for those who have been diagnosed properly, it's not an invitation to just throw away a job if you have a job, right? Especially in this
Right.
pandemic. That would be an example of impulsivity.
Yes. Yes.
Destroy
Yes.
your job. No. So you keep your job, you do the best you can, but then you are looking for a job that could best fit your ADHD. So if I'm somebody, for example, who needs to be on the move, then an on the move job is great. Being able to go, whether it's sales rep or those kind of jobs, or a job that affords you time to travel a lot and interact with people, because again, that exuberance and energy that is the flip side of the disorder is also a gift or a blessing,
Right.
and therefore that is one of the significant ways to work accommodation. You know, and then same thing for those who are not married yet and who have ADHD. This is the time now to think through who is the kind of person that I'd like to be with,
Yes.
and in order to do that, it's important to be in counseling to work through one's own issues. So individual age doesn't pick, for example, a parent that they had a struggle with. So they repeat the same issue. So the parent was hard and domineering, they go get a domineering partner. That's not going to help.
No, it's not.
But you need somebody who can be understanding, who is not going to excuse you, but who is able to encourage. I love an example that again Dr. Hollowell gave, So, he has had this thing for years, but like he will give presentations and so forth, and excellent presentation on ADHD and other stuff. But then one person in the room looked miserable, and he goes, and he's married, and he goes home, and wife said, "How did it go?" And said, "Boy, there's this one person that looked miserable, and they offered criticism during the question and answer section." And then the wife listened to him, and after he finished saying that, he said, "Okay, but what about the other people,
Mm-hmm.
who are listening?" And he said,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, I got a standing ovation." So she's like, "Oh, that's wonderful." So again, but she understands the disorder,
Yes.
and she understands him, and they've been together, so she knows that when he gives me the negative, I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to ask him what went well, because with the ADHD, he tends to
I
tune
love
in
that.
easily to the negative.
Yes, I love
So
that.
he
I love
picked
that.
he picked the kind of partner who um who he could grow with and learn with and discover. So if you don't have a partner yet, this and you have ADHD, this is the time to be able to kind of think through, with help, what's the kind of partner I need, to
Mm,
be with for the long haul.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that, Ade. So how do you stay motivated?
How do I stay motivated? Well, one of my biggest motivation is having supportive individuals in my life, friends, friends like yourself,
Right.
persons who I can talk to, and who build me up, affirm me, who check in. So sometimes I need to get friend, ask a friend, hey, check in on me with this or check on me with that, and I have friends like that. That helps the motivation. To be honest, one motivation sometimes is having emergencies, which is not
Mm,
which is not a sustainable motivator.
right.
Sometimes with ADHD, I get something done when I'm under pressure. Um,
Okay.
but that can be a shame. So I try to mix that. So there's the urgency, then there's the support,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then another way I try to get motivation is to try to bring some, make it interesting,
Yes.
make it interesting. So, for example, if I have a lot of dishes to wash, and sometimes the dishes pile up, and I say, boy, there's a lot of dishes to wash. So I put on some music, and so I'm dancing and I'm washing. So that
Yes.
get
I know,
so
and
by
it
the
makes
time
it better.
yeah, so by the time dishes are finished, the dishes are finished and I'm still dancing. So I said, okay, the dishes are finished, so I can just
Yes.
continue dancing and enjoy myself.
It
So
sounds it
that
sounds
make
like
it
me.
fun.
It sounds like me in terms of folding clothes. I was saying
Right.
it was just yesterday. I was saying to my husband, "Boy, it's something I don't like doing. So I'll just turn on the music and then I start folding, and I feel much better after."
Right. So those are some ways, so it's about interest, it's about sometimes urgency. Sometimes people say create your own deadline, but sometimes really that doesn't work.
Nope.
Um, but there are other ways to create that urgency to say, boy, if I don't do this at this time, and I want to, get a break on the weekend, my break, I'm going to have to do work on the weekend, and I don't want that, so I need to get it done. So then it becomes urgent since I want the break,
Right.
on the weekend. And then the whole thing of rewards. Now, this is something that I kind of need to revisit myself, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. The whole thing of reward. When I was a child, my mother did it for me. So we had a chart, and they have a sticker. When you do this, you get a sticker for this and that. And then at the end of, if you get a certain numbers, what they call tokens, then you get
Right.
a prize, or you get whatever something that I would like,
Right.
obviously, you know. But as an adult, I'm an adult, yes, but it's still important for me to kind of think through, all right, what's gonna give me a sense of that reward, you know?
Yes.
Um, so, for example, I'm learning Japanese on Duolingo. And one of the rewarding things is
Mm.
that at the end of a Japanese learning session, there's a little music that plays, congratulations. And then they give you gems, right? Which you then can use to buy within the game, not like buy in terms of a real way, but buy within
Right.
the game.
Right.
But again, that is built into Duolingo, and then I want to keep my streak. I don't want to lose my streak, and so that
Yes.
that
So that
that now
reward.
is
Yes.
right. So that's a kind of token economy thing, or token rewards, and so finding different things. So I actually want to revisit that. Finding these things that I find rewarding, and the reward has to be immediate. It can't be like, oh, I'll wait till the weekend to
No, yeah,
reward
it has
myself,
to be
because
immediate.
it
Yes.
don't work with individuals of age. The reward have happen like no, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Right.
I want you to leave some tips for persons dealing with ADHD and some groups that they can join to help.
Sure, sure, sure. So let's start with some of the groups or the resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a site called Attitude Mag, which is short for Attitude Magazine, right?
Okay.
That's www.attitudemag.com, and they have different articles on different topics with ADHD. Some are blogs, many are written by professionals.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's about coaching, about marriage, about just ADHD itself. And then you have on that side there are online support groups. Now these online support groups are not live like a Zoom support group. This is like, you go on and you can it's like, like on Facebook you have groups where people type stuff.
Right.
So that's one type of support. Now the good thing is, like in the States where you're at and across America, you can actually probably find groups of people that meet, you know, whether once a month or once a week, who have ADHD and they support one another, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, like, let me give a site that can help with that. So, for example, there is children and adults with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and the
Mm-hmm.
short for that is CHADD, CHADD, right?
Okay.
And it's a non-profit organization in the States. So, right, it says it right here, the largest and oldest non-profit organization in the United States dedicated to helping people with ADHD. Many resources, links, and support groups for adults and adolescents as well as children. So that's a
Okay.
key one that people can check out as well to kind of.
Okay.
And then there are other sites that help, like that site, direct to coaches you can find, therapists you can find, you know. So there are a couple of one resource I use as well is by a guy, Alan Brown. He has something called Crusher TV. And basically it's a one you can subscribe to it, a monthly subscription, and then he
Right.
has these coaching videos that help people with ADHD to deal with different topics, whether it's about productivity or time management, etc. And then he also is a coach that people can sign up to do coaching with, whether individual and a group counseling settings. So you can check out Alan's Crusher TV website, and
Okay.
so those are some things that can help.
Okay. Okay. So thank you so much, Ade. This was good. I mean, I learned a lot. I'm here writing my notes when you're talking. So I
Okay.
learned
Yes,
I learned
and
a lot.
thanks for having me. And just the last thing I would say again, I want to re-emphasize the fact that people listen to this thing and I say, "Oh, I might have this," right? I would just want to ensure that people remember that you don't have ADHD unless you have been formally diagnosed. A proper assessment, not a kind of quick fix thing, but thorough assessment, thorough history, thorough testing, um, because sometimes it's ADHD, sometimes it's something else. And sometimes it could be ADHD and depression, ADHD and anxiety disorder,
Right. Yes.
And so it's very critical that people get thorough, um, a thorough assessment um, in order to do that, so that you know what you're working with.
Right.
Especially because everybody's ADHD manifests in different ways. Look for those who have been formally diagnosed.
Yes, I agree. I agree. So thank you so much again for dropping some gems for us and informing us about this. I don't think many people understand it or how to go
Yeah,
about dealing with persons who have it. And it's not a sickness, it's not a disease, it's not something that people should be, let me say, normally people want to put them in a box or put them over there because they have this. It's not
right.
anything like that. They're regular people. Sometimes you don't even know that they have it. If probably sometimes they don't even say it to you, you don't know. So
Yes,
um I mean, we just need to do what we need to do to ensure that we are okay and people out there are okay who has it, you know? Yeah.
right.
So
Absolutely.
thank you so much. It was really good to have you. And
Thanks for
thank
having me,
you.
Jade.
Yes, and thank you guys for listening to the Unfiltered by Jade. And we'll be back next week, Tuesday. Thank you.